Hello, my name is Olivia, and I'm 35 years old. But let me take you back to where it all began. Those days, when my younger sister, Maddie, and I were still children, growing up in a home filled with love, but marred by the usual hardships of a middle-class family. Our parents, though often wrapped up in their own world of work, tried their best to instill in us values of strength, honesty, and a peculiar kind of heroism. Always stand up for those who can't, Dad would say during dinner, his voice firm yet kind. One evening, Maddie and I sat at the kitchen table, our homework spread out in front of us. She was struggling with a math problem, her brows furrowed in frustration. "Can you help me with this, Olivia?" she asked, her voice tinged with the sort of desperation only a younger sibling can have. I leaned over, pointing at her textbook. "See, you've got to divide here first, not multiply." "Like this?" she asked, her pencil hovering over the paper. "Exactly like that," I said with a smile. "You're smarter than you think, Maddie." She beamed back at me, a mixture of relief and pride in her eyes. It was moments like these that made me feel more like a parent than a sister. Our parents would often come home late, tired from their jobs. That night, as they walked through the door, Mom looked worn, her eyes searching for a moment of peace. "How are my girls doing?" she asked, her voice weary yet warm. "We're good, Mom," I replied, closing my textbook. "Maddie aced her math problem." "That's my girl," Mom said, smiling at Maddie, who was trying to hide her grin. "But remember, girls," Dad interjected as he hung his coat, "being smart isn't just about books. It's about knowing right from wrong and being there for people." "We know, Dad," Maddie and I chorused, rolling our eyes in unison, a shared gesture that brought a chuckle from our parents. I remember thinking then how much I wanted to protect Maddie, to shield her from anything the world might throw her way. Little did I know how our paths would diverge, how the very lessons we learned under this roof would shape our futures in ways we couldn't have imagined. "I wish I could freeze this moment," I whispered to Maddie as our parents started talking about their day. "Why?" she asked, puzzled. "Because everything is perfect right now," I said, a sense of foreboding settling in my heart. Maddie just laughed, her carefree sound filling the room. "You worry too much, Olivia. We'll always be like this." I smiled at her, wishing more than anything that she was right. The teenage years were like a roller coaster for Maddie and me. Our adventures, often reckless, painted those years with a shade of thrill and danger. It was a time of testing boundaries, and unfortunately, we chose to test them with a crowd that wasn't the best influence. "Maddie, are you sure about this?" I remember asking her one evening as we sneaked out to meet our new friends, a group of guys known for their wild antics. "Oh, come on, Liv," Maddie replied, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "It's just a bit of fun. What's the worst that can happen?" We'd stroll through the dimly lit streets, laughing and joking, feeling like we owned the world. But even back then, a small voice in my head whispered that this wasn't right. One night, things went a bit too far. We found ourselves in an abandoned building, the air thick with cigarette smoke and the sound of glass shattering. "Watch this, Olivia," shouted one of the guys as he hurled a rock through a window. The glass exploded into a million pieces, and everyone cheered. I felt a rush of adrenaline, but it was quickly replaced by a sinking feeling in my stomach. I glanced at Maddie, who was clapping and cheering along with the others. "Maddie, we shouldn't be doing this," I said, pulling her aside. "This isn't us." "Oh, lighten up, Olivia," she retorted, her eyes defiant. "We're just having some fun. Don't be such a killjoy." But I couldn't shake the feeling that we were heading down a dangerous path. That night, as we lay in our beds, I turned to Maddie, who was still buzzing from the evening's escapades. "Maddie, I'm worried about us, about the things we're doing," I whispered. Maddie rolled over to face me, her expression softening. "Olivia, we're just teenagers. This is what teenagers do. We're invincible, remember?" I wanted to believe her, to embrace that carefree spirit, but something held me back. It was like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing that one more step could mean a fall from which there was no return. As the days passed, I found myself more and more at odds with the choices we were making. The gap between us widened with each passing day, a gap filled with unspoken words and growing differences. I could feel Maddie slipping away, chasing a high that I no longer desired. Our teenage years led us deeper into the world of rebellion, and I found myself at a crossroads, drawn away from late-night thrills to the allure of justice and order. It was during those formative years, amidst the chaos of our misguided adventures, that my fascination with law enforcement took root. A beacon of purpose, guiding me on a path drastically different from the one Maddie continued to follow. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, I sat with Maddie on the porch of our family home. The air was cool, hinting at the coming autumn. "Maddie," I began hesitantly, "I've been thinking a lot about my future." She looked at me, her eyes reflecting the twilight. "What about it?" "I want to join the police academy after high school," I said, the words feeling heavy as they left my lips. Maddie laughed, a short, disbelieving chuckle. "You're kidding, right? Olivia, that's the last thing I expected." I shook my head. "I'm serious, Maddie. I've always been intrigued by law and order. I want to make a difference." She turned away, staring into the fading light. "And what about me? What about us?" I reached for her hand, but she pulled it away. "Maddie, we'll always be sisters, but we can't keep hanging around with those guys, getting into trouble. There's a whole world out there for us to explore, to make better." "You sound like one of those TV cops," she said bitterly. "You think you can just put on a badge and change the world?" "It's not just about the badge," I replied, my voice firm yet gentle. "It's about doing what's right, about protecting people." "And you think I can't be part of that?" Her voice was a mix of anger and hurt. "It's not that I don't think you can," I said slowly. "It's that I'm not sure you want to. Our paths are diverging, Maddie, and I wish more than anything you'd come with me." Maddie stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the wooden porch. "Maybe I don't want to be part of your righteous path. Did you ever think of that?" As I bid farewell to my old life and the friends who no longer shared my aspirations, I embarked on my journey in law enforcement with a resolute heart and a clear vision for the future. This transition marked the beginning of a new chapter where my dedication to justice and legal studies flourished, setting the stage for a career that contrasted sharply with Maddie's increasingly troubled path. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, I found myself buried in law books, my mind a whirlwind of legal theories and case studies. I was in the library, my second home, surrounded by the comforting smell of old books and the sound of distant footsteps echoing through the halls. "Still burning the midnight oil, Olivia?" a familiar voice called out. I looked up to see my classmate, Ethan, approaching with a bemused smile. "Hey, Ethan," I replied, closing a heavy tome with a soft thud. "Just trying to stay ahead. You know how it is." Ethan chuckled, pulling up a chair beside me. "I swear, you're going to be valedictorian at this rate. Don't you ever take a break?" I shrugged, a faint smile playing on my lips. "Breaks are a luxury I can't afford. Not if I want to make a difference out there." Ethan leaned back, studying me with a curious expression. "You're really passionate about this, aren't you? Most of us are here for the degree, but you're on a mission." I sighed, my thoughts drifting to Maddie. "It's more than just a degree for me, Ethan. It's about setting things right, about protecting those who can't protect themselves." Ethan nodded, understanding flickering in his eyes. "Like your sister, Maddie, right? You've mentioned her a few times." I felt a pang in my heart at the mention of her name. "Yeah, Maddie, she's been through a lot. I just wish I could do more to help her." Ethan reached out, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "You're doing more than you realize, Olivia. Just by being the person you are, you're making a difference. Maddie is lucky to have a sister like you." I smiled, though it didn't quite reach my eyes. "I hope so, Ethan. I really do." As the clock ticked on, marking the passage of time, Ethan and I delved into a deep discussion about criminal law, our voices a soft murmur in the quiet library. But even as I engaged in the conversation, part of me was with Maddie, wishing she could see the path I was carving for us both, the path of justice and hope. As I ascended the ranks in my law enforcement career, bolstered by my academic achievements and a growing reputation for excellence, I found myself increasingly immersed in the gritty realities of the job. As I walked through the dimly lit corridors of the Cloud Club, my heart pounded with a mix of anticipation and dread. The air was thick with smoke, and the muffled sounds of music and chatter bled through the walls. I had been here before, but tonight was different. Tonight, I was not a rebellious teen looking for thrills. I was a law enforcement officer on a mission. "Remember, keep it tight and professional," I whispered to my team. As we approached the main area, the door swung open, and we burst into the chaotic scene. "Police! Everybody down on the ground!" I shouted, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. As people scrambled in panic, I scanned the crowd. That's when I saw her, Maddie. Our eyes locked, hers wide with shock and what I thought was a flicker of betrayal. "Maddie!" I called out, moving towards her. "What are you doing here, Olivia?" Maddie spat, her voice laced with contempt. "I'm doing my job, Maddie. This is a raid. You need to get down." "You're busting me? Your own sister?" She was incredulous, her voice rising. "Maddie, it's not about you. It's bigger than that. Please, just cooperate." She scoffed. "So, Officer Big Sister comes to save the day. Too late, Olivia, too late." I hesitated, torn between my duty and the remnants of our sisterly bond. But the chaos around us didn't allow for hesitation. I grabbed her arm gently. "Maddie, please, come with me." She jerked her arm away. "Don't touch me. You've changed. You're one of them now." I felt a pang of pain, but I steeled myself. "I'm still your sister, but I can't ignore what's happening here." My colleague, Officer Daniels, approached us. "Is there a problem here, Olivia?" "No, no problem," I replied quickly, trying to shield Maddie. "Just dealing with one of the clubbers." Daniels looked at Maddie suspiciously. "We're going to have to process everyone here. You know the drill." I nodded, feeling a weight in my stomach. "I'll handle her. I'll make sure she gets home safely." Daniels gave me a long look, then nodded reluctantly. "Okay, but be careful. We don't give special treatment, even if—" His voice trailed off as he glanced at Maddie. As Daniels moved away, Maddie hissed at me. "You think you're better than me, just because you wear that uniform? It's not about being better, Maddie. It's about making the right choices." "Right choices? Look at you, busting your little sister. You've really made it, huh?" Her words stung, but I knew I couldn't let them sway me. "I'm trying to help you, Maddie." "Help me?" "I don't need your help, Olivia. Not anymore." I sighed, feeling the distance between us like a physical chasm. "Let's just get you out of here." As we walked out, I couldn't help but wonder if I was doing the right thing. Was I saving my sister or driving her further away? The uncertainty was crushing, but I had a duty to fulfill. And so, I led Maddie out of the club, each step heavy with the weight of our broken bond. The raid at the Cloud Club marked a pivotal moment in our lives, where my professional duty as a law enforcement officer painfully intersected with Maddie's troubled world, leading to an unavoidable and heart-wrenching confrontation. This harrowing experience foreshadowed the dark days ahead, culminating in the devastating news of Maddie's tragic death, an event that shattered our family and irrevocably changed my life's course. I remember the night vividly, the night that changed everything. The air was thick with tension as I stood outside our parents' house, the weight of dread pressing on my chest. My father opened the door, his face a ghostly pale. "Olivia," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's Maddie. She's gone." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Gone? What do you mean?" My voice trembled, refusing to accept the reality that was unfolding. My mother emerged from behind my father, her eyes red and swollen from crying. "She was with that man. Andrew, there was a shooting," she sobbed. I felt the ground beneath me sway. "Shooting? But how? Why?" I stammered, my mind racing through every possible scenario. Dad put a hand on my shoulder, trying to steady me. "They found her outside his house. She didn't make it, Olivia." The world seemed to stop spinning. Maddie, my little sister, the girl I had vowed to protect, was gone. Anguish and guilt washed over me in waves. It was my fault. If only I had been there for her. If only I had convinced her to leave that toxic life behind. I sat down at the kitchen table, the familiar surroundings now feeling alien. Did they catch him? Andrew, I asked, my voice hollow. He claimed self-defense, Mom said bitterly. The police are investigating, but it's Andrew. He has connections. Rage boiled inside me. He'll pay for this, I muttered, clenching my fists. I'll make sure of it. Dad sighed heavily. Olivia, you can't take this on yourself. It's not just about catching him. We need to grieve, to remember Maddie. I looked up, my eyes stinging with unshed tears. I can't just sit here, Dad. Maddie deserves justice. Mom reached across the table, her hand trembling as she touched mine. We know, darling, but we need you here, with us. We can't lose you too. Their words echoed in my head as I stood up, feeling a resolve settle within me. I'll be here for you both, but I won't rest until Andrew faces the consequences of what he's done. Maddie deserves that much. As I walked to my old room, the memories of Maddie flooded back. Her laughter, her dreams, the way she looked up to me. And now, all that was left were these memories, haunting me in the silence of the night. In the wake of Maddie's tragic death, a profound sense of loss and injustice engulfed me, leaving me questioning the very systems I had aspired to uphold. This pivotal moment marked a significant shift in my life. It was a somber evening, the kind that leaves a chill in your bones. The echoes of Maddie's laughter seemed to haunt the walls of my parents' living room, where I sat, lost in thought. My father, a man of few words, broke the silence. Olivia, you've been quiet. What's on your mind? He asked, his voice tinged with concern. I sighed, looking up from the coffee mug I'd been staring into. I'm thinking about leaving the force, I confessed, feeling the weight of each word. My mother gasped. But why, Olivia? You've always been passionate about your work. I was, Mom, but after Maddie, everything's changed. I feel like I'm fighting a losing battle. There's something else I need to do. And what would that be? My father inquired, his brow furrowed. I'm considering law school. I want to become a lawyer, I declared, a sense of purpose strengthening my voice. My mother reached across the table, taking my hand. Is this really about justice, Olivia? Or is it about vengeance for Maddie? Her question stung, but I knew she deserved honesty. It's both. I can't let Andrew get away with what he did. The system failed Maddie, and I won't rest until I've set that right. Vengeance is a dangerous path, my father warned. I know, Dad, but I can't stand idly by. I have to do this, not just for Maddie, but for others like her. My mother squeezed my hand, her eyes filled with tears. We trust you, Olivia. Just promise us you won't lose yourself in this quest for justice. I promise, I said, feeling a resolve I hadn't known before. I stood up, ready to leave, but my father's voice stopped me. Olivia, just remember, no matter what, we're here for you. We love you. I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. I love you both too, and I'll make things right, I swear. As I walked out into the night, the weight of my new mission settled on my shoulders, but with it came a fire in my heart. For Maddie, for justice, I was ready to fight. My journey to finding Andrew was meticulous and calculated, fueled by a burning desire for justice. I spent countless hours researching, observing, and eventually inserting myself into his world, all while masking my true intentions under a carefully crafted persona. It was at a charity event, under the guise of a chance encounter, that I finally met him. Andrew, isn't it? I said, extending my hand with a practiced smile. I've heard quite a bit about your business ventures. He looked at me, a flicker of interest in his eyes. And you are? Olivia, I replied, maintaining my composure. I'm in legal practice. It's always interesting to meet someone who's making such impactful waves in the community. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, but beneath the surface, I was analyzing every word, every gesture. It wasn't long before our casual meetings evolved into something more. With each passing day, I played my part flawlessly, portraying the perfect blend of charm and mystery to captivate him. The day he proposed, I knew my plan was coming to fruition. "Olivia, you've changed my life," Andrew said, his voice laced with affection I knew was based on a lie. "I can't imagine a future without you." I looked into his eyes, hiding the storm inside me behind a serene smile. "Andrew, you've brought a new light into my life too," I responded, my words carefully chosen. "Yes, I will marry you." As I slipped the ring onto my finger, a sense of triumph mixed with a deep, searing pain. I was one step closer to avenging Maddie, but at what cost to my own soul? This marriage, this bond formed under the shadow of my ulterior motive, was the necessary sacrifice in my quest for justice. From the moment I said I do to Andrew, I knew I was stepping into a role I never envisioned for myself. My marriage was not founded on love, but on a meticulously crafted plan of retribution. I was living with the man responsible for Maddie's death, pretending to be his devoted wife, all the while plotting his downfall. Each day, I played the part of the loving spouse, while internally, I was gathering evidence of his infidelity, a key component of my plan. The emotional toll was immense, but my resolve was unshakable. One evening, Andrew and I were having dinner in our lavish dining room. The air was thick with the scent of expensive wine and the unspoken truths between us. "So, Olivia," Andrew started, swirling his wine glass casually, "I've been thinking about us taking a vacation, somewhere exotic, just the two of us. What do you think?" I forced a smile, playing along. "That sounds wonderful, Andrew. A getaway could be exactly what we need." He leaned forward, his eyes searching mine. "You've been distant lately. Is everything okay?" I nodded, maintaining my facade. "Just tired from work, that's all. A vacation sounds like a perfect remedy." As we continued our meal, I couldn't help but think about the strange dichotomy of our relationship. Here I was, dining with the enemy, yet he was oblivious to the storm brewing just beneath the surface. A few days later, Andrew was out on a business trip, and I seized the opportunity to search his office. As I rummaged through his drawers, I found a piece of lingerie that wasn't mine. My heart raced. This was the evidence I needed. I carefully documented everything, knowing this would be crucial in the impending legal battle. When Andrew returned, I confronted him. Holding the lingerie up, I asked coldly, "Care to explain this, Andrew?" He stumbled over his words, his facade finally cracking. "Olivia, it's not what you think. I can explain." But I cut him off. "Save your lies, Andrew. I know what you've been doing." The room was charged with tension, the air thick with the betrayal hanging between us. He tried to approach me, his expression a mix of guilt and desperation, but I stepped back, my resolve hardening. "I trusted you, Andrew," I continued, my voice steady but filled with contempt. "But you're just like everyone else, a cheater, a liar." He tried to speak, but I was done listening. I left the room, leaving him standing alone, a mix of anger and confusion on his face. As I walked away, I knew that the final act of my plan was set into motion. My marriage, a mere facade, was the key to my sister's justice, and I was ready to see it through to the end, no matter the cost. The next morning, I initiated the divorce proceedings, armed with the evidence of his infidelity. It was a grueling process, filled with legal battles and emotional turmoil, but I remained steadfast. In the final court session, as the judge granted the divorce and ruled in my favor, I turned to Andrew. "You never knew who I really was, Andrew," I said, my voice steady. "I am Olivia, Maddie's sister, the sister of the girl you destroyed." The color drained from his face as realization dawned on him. "Olivia, I had no idea." "No, you didn't," I replied, turning away from him for the last time. "And now you'll pay for what you did to her." As I stepped out of the courtroom, the finality of the judgment against Andrew resonated deeply within me. It was more than just a legal victory. It was the culmination of years of relentless pursuit to make him pay for Maddie's death. "I will make sure you face the full consequences of your actions," I said to Andrew, who stood there, a mixture of shock and realization in his eyes. "Not just for the infidelity, but for everything you've done, especially to Maddie." I had meticulously gathered evidence over the years, not just of his betrayal, but of his deeper, more sinister actions. You see, Andrew, I continued, my voice steady but laced with resolve, I've been collecting more than just proof of your affairs. I have evidence of your illegal activities, the ones you thought were well hidden. The drug deals, the manipulations, the corruption. His face paled as he realized the extent of my knowledge. Olivia, you can't. I mean, we were married, he stammered, trying to grasp at any straw of leniency. Our marriage was a facade, a means to an end. And now, it's time for you to face the music, I said, turning to leave. I've already handed over everything to the authorities, the police, the district attorney's office. They have all they need to put you away for a long time. As I walked away, I could feel his eyes on me, but I didn't look back. I knew that the legal system would take over from here. Andrew would be prosecuted for his crimes. His empire of deceit and corruption would crumble, and he would finally pay for what he did to Maddie. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice. It was about ensuring that Maddie's death wasn't in vain, and that Andrew couldn't harm anyone else the way he had harmed her. As I walked into the sunlight, I felt a sense of closure. I had done what I set out to do. Maddie's memory would always be with me, but now I could start to look forward to a future where her death had brought about some measure of justice. I stood at the window of my parents' house, looking out at the quiet street, lost in thought. The last few years had been a whirlwind of pain, strategy, and ultimately, justice. My pursuit of Andrew, my marriage to him, and the subsequent legal battles had drained me, but they also gave me a sense of purpose I hadn't felt since Maddie's death. Olivia, are you all right? My mother's gentle voice pulled me back from my reverie. I turned to face her, offering a small, weary smile. I'm fine, Mom, just thinking. She walked over, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. You've done so much, honey. Maddie would be proud of you. I sighed, feeling the weight of her words. I hope so, Mom. I really do. My father entered the room, his eyes reflecting a mixture of pride and concern. Olivia, we heard about the court ruling. Andrew's finally getting what he deserves. I nodded, feeling a bittersweet satisfaction. Yes, the judge sentenced him today. It's finally over. My mother's eyes filled with tears. And what about you, dear? What will you do now? I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of clarity for the first time in years. I've decided to use half of the settlement to support addiction recovery programs. It's what Maddie would have wanted. That's very noble of you, my father said, his voice filled with respect. I smiled, feeling a sense of peace. It's not just about being noble, Dad. It's about doing something meaningful with this whole ordeal. It's about turning a tragedy into hope for others. There was a pause, a comfortable silence, as we all reflected on the journey we had been through. My mother finally broke the silence. And what about you, Olivia? Will you continue practicing law? I looked out the window again, considering her question. I think I will, Mom, but I want to focus on helping those who can't afford legal representation. I want to make a difference. My father nodded approvingly. That's my girl, always fighting for the underdog. We shared a quiet laugh, and for a moment, it felt like the old times. Before all the chaos, before the pain. It was a reminder that despite everything, we were still a family, still together. As I stood there with my parents, I realized that this was my path to redemption, not just seeking justice for Maddie, but helping others in her memory. It was a way to honor her life, her struggles, and to keep her spirit alive. In that moment, I knew that my journey wasn't over. It was just taking a new, hopeful direction.